Hey guys, Joe here. So it is Thursday the 5th and I am heading to another doctor's appointment. So this one is, I forget what the hell it's called still. Not sonogram, because I'm not pregnant. What the hell is it called? Whatever it is. Basically to see if there's any kind of damage to my knee. So we'll see about that. Oh my God. It is so cold. I hate this weather. I hate it. Time to move. So anyway, not much going on. Still messing with this fence calculator. And then the team, they're actually getting a ton of stuff done with the, sorry, I'm losing. I didn't sleep well last night. A ton of progress with the front counter area. So they're figuring out the painting and stuff like that. So the one thing that we started doing this week that I think I talked about yesterday or the day before is blocking out chunks of time for the different things that I'm doing, right? And so a block of time for, I think I already said it, but in case you haven't seen that video, is in the morning I'm having the morning meeting with Kaya and Mike and going over the stuff that they either worked on the previous day, things that they need clarification on from me, and stuff like that. And then after that, it's typically, today I did a meeting, or actually I was scheduling a meeting for my guys after I got back from the doctor's appointment. But so anyway, today was blocking out time for the first meeting in the morning, then doing the fence calculator for 2 hours, going to this doctor's appointment. Then after that, doing, we're calling them updates, but basically going through if there's things that need to be done, like that the Mike or Kaya assigned to me, or that I have to double check. Basically spending a half hour on their stuff, and then a half hour or so on for updates for my guys. So and then after that, going back and doing another 2-3 hour block on this fence calculator. And so that's what was planned out. So then I text Cruz, because it's we were low on these one type of panels. So I'm hey, just, you might want to send Leon over to the other place to start building that stuff out. And I said, I have this stuff scheduled at 12 o'clock. I'll meet with you, right? Or you guys with the front counter area. So then my wife interrupts me at I don't know, an hour into me working, and I have an hour left to go to the doctor's appointment. And she's all right, well, I need you to look at this. And I'm I can't, this is what I'm doing now. And I'm meeting with you guys at whatever. And she's well, I need you to look at it now. So that way we can do blah, blah, blah. I'm no, I'm doing this. And then she just kept on going. So I'm I go out there. And then she's you gotta, what do you think about these paint colors? I'm I don't care. You're asking the colorblind person what color the wall should be. I'm I don't give a shit. And I said, I already told Cruz, we're doing this, I'm having a meeting with you guys at 12 o'clock after I get back. And she goes on and on. I'm dude. And then Cruz and them are stepping in. It's yeah, he already told us that we're having this meeting at 12 o'clock. So the one thing I have to get better at, there's two things, right? And because it's a frustration on my part, because I had this planned out, and it's I want to get this stuff done. There's so much stuff that needs to be accomplished, and it's if I keep on getting interrupted, and that's what I said to her. I'm doing something really complex, going through calculations, and it's not even a simple it's not even a normal calculation where it's x plus y equals this, right? You're taking these calculations of from these different they call them tables, but it's kind of like spreadsheets. So you have spreadsheet here, spreadsheet there. And then you're trying to pull the calculations from these individual fields on these different spreadsheets. So it's it's not easy. And I'm she's oh, it's quick. It's only 2 minutes. I'm no, it's going to take me forever to even get back into thinking about what I was doing, right? And so with that being said, there is, and actually Alex Ormozzi talked about this, of make your schedules versus manage your schedules. And I think I talked about this in the past, but in case you haven't heard it. So the way they explain it is that make your schedule is for the people that are making stuff. So this would be for me, that because I'm making this fence calculator. It could be people that are doing video editing and things like that. Those types of people, for these big projects and things like that, getting interrupted in the middle of it, when we're getting interrupted multiple times in the middle of it, completely screws everything up, because like it just takes so long to deal with the interruption, then to go back to figure out like what the hell you were trying to do in the first place. And like for the maker schedule, it really needs to be like hours long blocks. So like, 2, 3, 4 hour blocks of time. So that way you're just in the zone and you're getting the stuff done. And then a manager schedule is, as it kind of sounds, like for managers, and typically for them, a lot of it's like they might have 10, just say there's half-hour meetings, and like if it's their meeting day, it might be like, they might have 10 meetings scheduled. So that, it's 5 hours worth of schedules, but like a lot of it's just back to back. And it's, so for me, like I have to be more on that maker schedule, where it's like, yeah, I have meetings I have to do, but it's also, I need these like 3-4 hour blocks of time to get shit done as well. So anyway, the two things I need to do better, and this might help you out as well, is that number one, I have to do, because I just started this week, and it's like I have to do a better, I like their logo. I have to do a better job at making sure everyone knows what my schedule looks like, so that way they know when they can basically more or less bother me. Shouldn't say bother me, but ask me questions, like whatever, right? And the other thing is, and this is similar probably to dealing with a child as well, I call my wife a child, but if we're communicating that this is my schedule, that if there's any kind of, like if people are trying to interrupt me in any sort of way, it's just a no. This is what we're doing, this is how we're handling, and that is it. Because it's like anything else. Like if you cave in the first time, and it's like they just, like I see it with my son at this point, where it's like he never just takes no for an answer. And the reason is because it's like my fault or my wife's fault, where it's like, we say one thing, but then he will try to sell us in so many different ways and so many different angles, to the point where at some point we're like, all right, fuck it. Like, what's it going to take for you to leave me alone? And it's normally, well, if you just give me what I asked for, then I'll do it. So then he eventually gets what he asked for anyway. So now it's like he just knows that, or he's been trained like a crackhead, or like, bad way to put it, but like, or through social media, that, or like slot machines and things like that, when you have this variable interval of the number of times you pull the lever or you ask for something, and the number of times it takes to do that until you get what you want, right? Whereas I knew, like growing up with my mom, if I got grounded or if I asked for something or whatever, if she said no, like it was just like no. So like I didn't even try, because like I didn't try asking a million times, because number one, I knew she was going to say no, and number two, if I kept on asking, I would have gotten in trouble. So there's that. So there's some parenting advice that I should be taking for myself. But yeah, so that's what I got going on. I got like 3 minutes, so I'm gonna head out now. That is an ugly combination for a Tesla. It was like a Model 3. It was a Tesla. It was like green, but not like lime green, because I really like green, but like a green with gold rims. It was ugly. Anyway, so yeah. So hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll probably do a video on the way back, but that's kind of like what I got going on for today. And oh, don't forget, the one thing that was really nice, and I should just mention this real quick. So the one thing that was really nice is, so one of the guys that works at the company, his son, and that's the way he kind of got the job, or we even knew about him, is his son actually buys from us, right? So he used to work for his son, but he didn't have enough business, so that's why he came to work for us. Well, him and the son used to work for the supplier, the guy that tries to like make my life hell. And so anyway, we're talking about the fence convention and, coming up, which again, if you're in the South Jersey area, fence convention is the 24th and 25th of January. The 24th is like classes and stuff like that. The 25th is the actual like trade show part where you can meet us and stuff, which you can actually meet us on that Friday anyway. But we've been talking. Look, if anyone's interested, if you want to stay down, I will get the number one, whoever wants to go can go. Number two, whoever would like to see the or if you want to stay down, I can get you a room, as well as the hotel that we're going to be staying at, and that kind of thing. And the one thing that was really nice to hear, he's like, you know what, because he worked for the other guy for like years, and like they would say different things, like, because we would have food every Friday and stuff like that, and they would always be like, you do this every Friday, and it's like, I've never even got it. Like, after working for this guy for years, like, I didn't even get like a can of soda. It was to that level. But for this, what he was talking about is like, you know, you're offering to do this, and he's like, I've only ever built the displays for these fence conventions. I was never asked to go to these types of things. Like, it was only for like the higher ups and the salespeople and stuff like that. It was never for the guys that were working like in the production area or anything like that. So it was kind of like nice to hear, because it's like, oh, they almost hit me. It was nice to hear, because like that, I was thinking about it last night. I was almost like honestly, it kind of got morbid, because like all these health issues, I'm like, I really should get like a full body scan. And then I kind of just imagined myself of like, what if, because anything's possible, but like, what if I go through this body scan or whatever, they end up finding something, and I end up going to talk to the doctor, and they're like, you have 3 months left to live, right? And so there was this like literally, I'm like crying in the bathroom last night. And actually, I'm like emotional now thinking about it, because it's like, we don't know how long we have to live, and like the money, I don't care about the money from the fence supply. You know, obviously I have to make money and, you know, things like that. But I've talked about it in the other videos where it's like the money's just not my motivation. But it's like, number one, I realized that for the most part, the company runs without me. But number two, it's like I want so much more. You know, I'm not trying to do this for the money. It's really for the impact that I can make. And the impact is, you know, I always look at like what we can do for the contractors, but it's also for the crew as well. Just hearing that kind of stuff, even though it's nothing crazy, but it's like, you know, that's what I want to be known for. You know, I want to be known as the company that takes care of you know, their people, whether it's a contractor or whether it's the contractors or the people that work for us. You know, I want to make a big impact. So anyway, it was nice to hear. I'm going to head out and hopefully find where I'm supposed to be going in this thing. So anyway, have a great day. Talk to you. Bye. Hey guys, Joe here. So I'm heading home for the day, kinda, till I have to take my son to basketball practice, and then I'll probably work for a few more hours, possibly. So I had the doctor's appointment today, and so I was with this other doctor. Really liked him. His mindset as, you know, younger guy, and the mindset around the way he wants to, he doesn't want to work with insurance companies. He, like, everything's like completely out of pocket, and then basically they'll give you a, you know, receipt or whatever, and then you can, it's up to you to like take care of the insurance company to see if they'll reimburse. And the reason why he's doing that is because they, like, the insurance companies, they take most of the money, and like at that point, if he went that route, he'd end up having to put in, you know, instead of doing, I think he said he was only doing 9 people, but in order to make the same amount of money, he would end up having to do like 30 or something like that, right? And that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to be more of a holistic approach, you know, where you're actually spending time with the person and, you know, things like that. And so he was working for another company, and he ended up starting this on his own, and he is doing this 2 days a week, and then he works at the urgent care or something, like 3 days a week or something, so until like he can build this business, because it's only been around for a short period of time. And so some of the things, like, naturally, whenever I go and like anytime I'm dealing with a business owner, it's, or even like just a normal person, my brain just doesn't shut off, and I'm like, I told him, like, so anyway, I'm getting my knee checked out, and like there's still fluid and it's swollen and shit like that. So he's like, all right, so basically here's your options. We can do this or this. And he's like, well, I'm not like the pushy type of doctor, and, you know, whatever. And I said, well, what would you do? And he's like, oh, this. I'm like, all right, let's do that, right? And because like, if I'm going to a doctor, I'm going there for their expertise, and like basically if it's their own body, what would they do? And if they would do that with their body, I should do it with mine as well, because like, especially for me, it's like, he's like, look, you could put this off for a little bit longer. Like, basically, I chose to get my knee, he basically just drained it in the office and put a steroid shot in there, so that way it wouldn't swell back up while we're going through the healing process. And so anyway, we're talking about business and shit like that. And one of the things that, because he was talking about like, I have to, at this point, because he's new business and things like that, he has to answer all the phone calls and emails and order supplies and like you name it and like all that kind of stuff. And I was talking about that, and I'm like, well, and my head naturally gravitated towards content, right? Because he's looking for a specific type of customer, and where he's at is very high income and compared to like the rest of the area. And I said, yeah, it's probably because you're trying to like, go after higher income people, because they're the ones that typically, they don't want to deal with any issues. They want to just get with a person. As we were talking about how like a doctor is like, a lot of times regular model just doesn't work, because you see them for 5 minutes. They're like, oh, I have this, and this problem. They're like, oh, just take this. And whereas people, either higher income people or someone that's been having like long-term issues like myself, I want someone that like look at like from the full perspective. And so anyway, I'm like, asking about if he's done any content, and he's done a little. And as we're just in there is literally, so, I was there obviously like with the whole getting my knee drained, and then he did the, not sonogram, I freaking, same, and he's like, it's the same thing as like, for someone to get for checking the baby during pregnancy. Why is it escaping my, anyway, doesn't matter. So anyway, just from that visit alone, there was like 3 or 4 different pieces of content that the guy could have made, and it would have significantly helped him generate more leads. Because like, that's what it came down to. You need basically more leads, right? Because he's only doing this for 2 days a week, and then he does, the other thing until he can build up the business enough. Now, fortunately, he has his mom that is actually she worked for someone else, but she's very high up in the medical world and working under, being an assistant to a CEO and things like that. So like, he's got like this unique advantage for someone that can like just basically take the business and just run with it, like the day-to-day operations and stuff like that. So a few key takeaways. Number one is like, I think it's really important that as building a business that you have someone that can, unless you're naturally good at it, having someone that can help with the day-to-day operations, or in another way to say it is the integrator role, if you look at the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And so I've talked about it before, but the integrator role is the person that takes the vision and makes it just happen, deals with the day-to-day operations, and ideally they are a very consistent person where like, once the standards are set and the procedures are set, it's just followed by the book over and over and over again, because I know for myself it's just not going to happen. And then, like I said, the content, literally at least 3 to 4 pieces of content that could have been made just on my visit alone. And I would implore you to start looking at, like, when you go to a, like when you're going out to quotes or you're at a job site and things like that, what are the different forms of pieces of content that you can make during those interactions, or maybe right after those interactions, right? So, like in my case, he is talking about the knee. These people are crazy. So anyway, talking about the knee and like about the fluid and all this other kind of shit. You're gonna like ram it in the back of me, man. Calm down. These people are crazy. And so anyway, he pulled out the talk and he's like, I'm more of a visual person. Like, let me show you on this poster or whatever. So like, there would have been a piece of content where it's like talking about like, when the fluid, it being on the front of the knee and then also in the back of the knee, and then there's apparently this S-shaped thing or whatever. And Like that was a perfect piece of content for that. And then another piece of content would be like what to do if your knee swells, or like here's the treatment option. Here's the 3 treatment options that you can do if your knee is swelled up and whatever, right? Then there could be another piece of content of here's the reasons why your knee might be swelled up. And it could be like you twisted it during activity, you did this. It could be arthritis, whatever it may be, right? And then it could be something like as far as like what is the recovery time for like when you get your knee drained, right? Pros and cons of getting a knee drained versus leaving it alone, things like that. And because he was talking about this stuff, he's like, well, if you go to physical therapy and you don't get your knee drained and you don't do this, well, what could happen is as you do the physical therapy, because you're kind of like aggravating the knee again, you're going to end up, it's going to create more fluid, and then you're just going to be back to square one, right? And then the other piece of content is like when he started talking about why he doesn't accept insurance, right? And just again, because like he doesn't want to be that factory farm where it's like I need to push out like 30 patients a day. Or he talked about where like because if he had the insurance model, he would have to have like the 30 appointments a day. And he's like, look, we're spending an hour together, and because of that, I'm able to, because you want to get your knee drained, I'm actually able to handle that now. Whereas if I went the insurance model route, then I'm fully booked out, and because of that, I have to, you're gonna have to schedule another appointment, and you're gonna have to come back another day. And there's so many different, again, just from this one visit, there's probably another 1 or 2 things. We'll talk about that, why he doesn't accept insurance. And then also the other piece was about his, overall the vision that he sees for, for his company and his patients and, stuff like that. And then also another way of content is he could have done some video ads based on like what we were talking about, right? So there's all the different kinds of stuff that you can do. And for that ad type of content, are you experiencing knee pain and you've been to several doctors and you're tired of, you got to go. Are you dealing with knee pain? Go, Maddie, you got to go. You got her? I'll bury them. So Mike, don't forget to edit this part out, or previous to this. And so like with an ad, another piece of content for that is like listening to what the person said and making an ad based on that, right? So what I mean by that is like I specifically talked about I didn't like going to the regular doctors because I feel like I see them for like literally 5 minutes, and like whatever I tell them, they're like, oh, take this pill. And that's where he was talking about, again, the more holistic approach. So then after talking to a customer, or talking to me, a simple ad and doing it right after the fact would be super helpful, because you just went through the experience, so like you remember more of like what the person said, and then also because you get more of the energy level or the passion and things like that. So like that quick piece of content could have been like, are you having issues with your knee, and it's you've been dealing this with for a few weeks, and you really want to like. In my case, I specifically talked about pickleball. Like, do you want to do this, and this, but you're not able to because of this knee pain? And you've been to several doctors, but you feel like, you're in and out in 5 minutes. They don't really listen to you, and all they want to do is give you a cortisone shot. If that's the case, at my practice, what we do is this. Number one is we instead of booking 5-minute appointments, we book 1-hour appointments. So that way we can go through your full history. We can really assess the situation, and then, give you the time you need, so that way we can explain the different options. And in most cases, one of the number one treatments for knee pain and the swelling and things like that is where we actually drain the knee. And unlike the regular doctors where they're going to make you come back and it's going to inconvenience your schedule and blah, 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 because we have these hour-long appointments, we're able to take care of it right then and there. So we are, number one, you're going to have a much better experience. You're not going to be rushed out. You're going to feel like you're being heard, and whatever treatment, like more than likely we can handle it right then and there if it's something as simple as a knee draining. And that's why, if that's what the type of practice you're looking for, check us out. Something like that. So actually that's probably at least 5 pieces of content. And honestly, there's probably more that I even, kind of forgot about at this point. So there's opportunities everywhere. It's just for you to take advantage of them, right? And so again, look at in each area, as soon as something's being said, if there's a question that someone's asking you, if there is a time where you're talking about why you do what you do, whether it's like why you set up appointments the way you do, why you schedule the installs the way you do, why you install in a certain way, things like that. They're very quick pieces of content that you can easily just record, and a lot of times the best way to do it, and I talk about the Pocket 3 all the time, but you can do it from your cell phone as well, but literally having a setup that makes it very nice and easy, so that way you can quickly and easily record the videos as they happen. And I really like doing it in the car, because you're typically, a lot of times, especially as a contractor, you're having the conversations at a person's house, and then you're quickly driving to another person's house. So this is where you would be able to, as you're driving to that next person, is to create that piece of content. It's really fast. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be anything long. It could literally be a minute long, and it's, as long as it's got all the information needed, you're good to go. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you my setup. Now, I'm gonna just take a picture and send that, so then Mike hopefully can put that in there. So what you see in this image, right, is, so number one, don't mind the butterflies, because that is back in my day, because I've had this car forever, end up drilling a hole and like whatever, so that's there. But anyway, you can see on the left hand side it says, well, the word's upside down, it's like Panvox or something. That's just a magnetic mount for my phone. And then you can see on here the Pocket 3, and the thing and if you can see, actually, you know what I'm gonna do, go all extra fancy. So yeah, this is the setup you can see. So in here is it's upside down, but this is the magnetic mount on my phone, which you can see here on the well, I'm pointing it there, but you can see it on the back of the phone there. So then it easily just pops right up, right? So that's number one. The other thing is for here. So this is a 2-piece mount. So this mounts here, and then I got this arm piece that goes into here. And I had to do that because I had to mount multiple things, and plus I had to get this to the angle that I wanted, right? And then what you see in here, and actually I can pop this off. This is getting more and more difficult. So what you can see here, right, is that this easily, notice I'm doing this one-handed, so it's clipped on, right? And then what you can see on here is just my mic. And then, so I literally turn this on, I turn the Pocket on, and then I literally just start hitting record, and then this is what we ended up with. And it's nothing super crazy. And you can see this is where it tracks my movement and that kind of stuff. And it works really well. So it's not the cheapest setup. Like I said, for something like this, you're looking at, for the Pocket 3, for the Creator Combo, it might be on sale now, but it's gonna set you back about $700. That being said, they do have this other thing, and Mike, you're gonna have to look this up, or I can send a link or something. So what they have is, Costco had it, I don't know if it's still on sale for this, but they had this combo where it's basically just, I think the Pocket 3, it didn't come with the mic, but it came with maybe an extra battery or something like that, because they actually just came out with, and I might test it out at some point, but this is the DJI Mic 2 or something like that. And then they actually came out with this mini mic. So it's actually, it looks like it's half the size of this thing. And, but it's a really nice setup. And like I said, you can use it. You would be able to connect this to your phone if you want to just get started with that. So that way you can have it clipped and it just sounds really good. The mini mic, I haven't tested out that, but apparently I think that's a little bit cheaper. Doesn't have as much functionality, but honestly, I don't even use the functionality. The only thing that's nice with this, which I haven't even had to use yet, is whenever I'm recording audio, it always records a separate audio file. So that way if something gets, and it's stored on here, so that way if something happens between going from here to the Pocket 3, you're able to get that audio anyway, which again, I haven't even had that issue. And like at this point, I've created, I don't even know how many videos with this thing at this point. So I'm really happy with it. But that's an easy way of creating content. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's literally like almost every time that you talk to a homeowner or a customer, or it could be another business owner or whatever, anytime they're asking questions about your business, what you do, about the types of materials, it could be about the installation process, any of the other processes, why you install this certain way. Because, you know, something as simple as like, hey, I was at this customer's house today and they had some other quotes and we were explaining to them that, you know, we came out at a higher price. And so when we started asking questions like, you know, how the material is going to be installed and how many pounds of concrete per post the other companies were going to use, and like we just started finding out that like nothing was really discussed for the homeowner. So this is where you're able to really start talking about like, this is why we do what we do, and this is why it makes it a better product, or this is why we have so many good, this is why we have so many 5-star reviews, things like that. So it's really not rocket science to do. Again, you can like literally get started with anything. It's very fast, it's very simple. And in the beginning, you don't even have to do any editing. Literally just take a video with one thought in mind that you're going to talk about and just do that and nothing else, right? And again, it's really easy to do while you're driving, and you don't even have to worry about talking into the looking at the camera the whole time, because you notice when I'm driving, normally I'm looking at the road. So it just makes it nice where I'm not really focused on what I'm actually doing. It's just because that was the other thing that I picked up on him, right? So if I told him, or if he produced a piece of content on why he does what he does, but he was trying to do this super professional setup, and he wanted to set up the camera in a certain room, or maybe it's not even a professional setup. Maybe he's like, you know what, I just want to set up a camera, I'm going to put it on a tripod, and I'm going to sit in front of it, and I'm going to say exactly this and everything else, which is fine. But especially in the beginning, you're not going to be comfortable doing it. I'm not comfortable doing it. Whereas if I'm just in a car and I'm literally thinking about other things or having to pay attention to other things while I'm talking about a subject, it's just going to come off more natural. And like, you don't have to really think. At the end of the day, if you've talked about something like 400 times, whether it's the installation process, why you do what you do, whatever, the types of material used, whatever it may be. If you've, at this point, like you've been in business for any length of time, the questions that you're going to answer in these types of videos, you've already answered them like hundreds of times. Like, you don't even have to think about what you're going to say, you're just going to say it. So, and I think what happens is like when we try to set up the camera, when we try to look all professional and everything else, we are so focused on like what we're going to say instead of just letting ourselves be who we are and just talk about it, right? And that's why I really do think that the easiest way to produce content is like when you aren't able to actively think about what you say. So it's different than what you see most of the time with a lot of this content and stuff like that. I don't think it has to be over. At this point, if you're watching other, it could be other companies and you see what they're doing and you're like, oh my God, that like, I need to look like that. You don't. Like, you need to look like you. That's what people care about. They only care about, think about the people that always, if you know someone, maybe you're picking up your kids from school or whatever else, and they're always like, they just seem perfect. Like everything's put together and they're always like calm. Nothing's ever happening. They're always showing up on time. It doesn't ever look like they're rushing or anything like that. Like, we don't really relate to those people too well, right? And if they act like their shit don't stink and everything else, like, do you really want to like talk to them? No, because they're full of shit, right? Whereas if you have someone that's more down to earth and more real, and you see them rushing in occasionally, and the kid's going in and they're looking like a hot mess, or the kid's like flipping out about whatever, we can relate more to that because we see ourselves in that narrative. Now, you might be perfect, I don't know, but I'm not. But then again, we're human, right? So anyway, I gotta go in. I have to make dinner, which I absolutely hate. And I will say this now, I will call this, at some point in my life, And it's not being like a rich snob thing, but it's just like I want to get rid of as much, and this, I talked to him about this today too. I want to get as much shit off my plate as possible. The things that I only want to do, the things that bring me joy and make me money. That's it. And typically the things that bring me joy do bring me money. It's not that I'm money motivated, but I guess that was a bad way to say it. But look at I don't want to get too far into this because I really got to go. But anyway, what you want to do, well, what I'm trying to do personally is I am trying to basically compile a list of things that I do. And basically there's like two things about it, right? Does it bring you energy, or does it drain you of energy, right? So if you're not a social person and you go into like maybe a wedding or something like that, and afterwards you're just like mentally exhausted, well, that's draining you of energy. Or if you like talking to a bunch of parents at school because you're at some kind of school function, that drains the shit out of me. I don't like it. Whereas if I'm talking to a business owner like today, I absolutely love it, right? So does it bring you energy, or does it take your energy away, right? And then the next thing is it a high value activity or a low value activity? And again, money's not everything, but until we have the money that we need and the business is where it needs to be and all that kind of stuff, we have to look at that as well. So the goal is there's the 4 quadrants. So there's the brings energy and low value, takes energy, low value, right? So number 1 is get rid of, as quickly as you possibly can, the things that take away energy and that are low value, like the dumb shit each day, right? The other thing is, and then you ideally want to just do the things that bring you energy and make you, and then have a lot of value as well. So in my case, it's content like this. I enjoy it. It's something to do. But anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you. Hasta mañana. Bye. Did I mention that I freaking hate cold weather? It's driving me insane. So it is still Thursday. I am heading back, I'm leaving work again, heading to go pick my son up from basketball practice. And yeah, so this day consists of starting work at like 6:40, working till I think 4. I think I left around 4, went home, cooked dinner, took him to get shoes, dropped him off at practice, and then worked for like an hour and a half or so, and then going to pick him up and go home and repeat this all over again. So the one thing I want to talk about is whether or not, a few things, and I only got like 10 minutes. So number 1 is, should you be an owner? Should you start your own company, right? And I think in order to be successful, at least from what I've seen, and I'm probably going to forget something because this is just randomly thinking after working how many ever hours, is number 1 is you have to be willing to bang your head against a wall repeatedly for hours a day for months and years. Number 1. I think that's one of the biggest things, because it is so easy to say, fuck this, it's not worth it anymore, I'm just going to go work for someone else. Like, if there's not something driving you, and it doesn't even have to be like, oh, it's passion and all this other kind of shit. It could be like, for me, because I kept on looking back at like why I started Defense Company 8 years ago or whatever it happened to be. And like, honestly, it still kind of escapes me a little bit because I'm not 100% sure. But one of the biggest motivators for me was I was completely broke. So for me, I had to I needed a side hustle. Otherwise, I legit would have been one of those kinds of deals. And honestly, most of it was, it was my fault. I was done with my money. I wasn't making enough. I was spending too much, like all that kind of shit. But if you're not willing to, again, figuratively bang your head against the wall for like crazy amounts of time, and for like a period that's so long that people think you're like fucking crazy, it's probably not going to work out, right? Unless you get lucky, and you may. Or like, maybe it's not a luck thing. Maybe it's like maybe you're just smarter than most people. Maybe you're smarter than just me in general. Maybe I'm just dumb and I like the abuse. Who knows at this point, right? And so that's number 1. Number 2, I would not start a business if you're going to put everything, you're not going to leave everything to not the choice. Basically, if you're the type of person that is going to wait around for someone else to help you out, I don't think ownership is something for you, because honestly, being an owner, a lot of the times, and when the times are good, that's when you're normally like surrounded by people. When the times are bad, that's when you're by yourself most times. And it's not like, I don't mean like physically by yourself. I mean like mentally by yourself, which I personally feel is worse, just because like I'm dealing with my own like mental issues and shit like that. It's not a fun place to be sometimes. It's really not. The amount of stress and everything else, it's crazy. Though I think I was kind of helped in that department because of McDonald's, because the stress was so bad at that place that honestly, I don't think I could ever go through anything worse, right? And again, like I talked about it in the past, so I'm not going to go all into it, but it just was not a job for me, right? The other thing is, like, I feel like there has to be, I feel like, at least for me, it's been working out. Now, I'm sure there's better ways to handle things and whatnot, but you know, sometimes like you're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to be 100% ready. It's kind of like having a kid, I guess, is the best way to put it. You're never really going to be ready to be a business owner. You're just not. Like, there's so many times, like, you're going to look at situations or think about a situation, or you're going through something right now that even just a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, you're like thinking, there's no way I could possibly do that. But like, we can. Like, I've proven it time and time again. And I think that kind of like strengthens that muscle of that, I don't want to say confidence muscle, but it's just the knowing that like I'm gonna be okay, right? One way or another, my back's been against the wall so many times, to the point where like if I didn't book a job like that day or get a deposit that day, like things would be like really freaking ugly. I've been through those times so many times that like, but every time, one way or another, sometimes not in a way that you would ever think would happen, but things would just work out. And now because of that, I think helps me now, because there's really not a fear of if something's going to work out or not. Speaking of fear, if you are the type of person that is scared of failing, scared of what people are going to say, it might not work out for you. The failure thing, number one, I think to realize, I forget the exact quote, but it's like the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that the successful people have just failed way more often and like much faster. And that's the way I kind of look at it as well. For me, it's like, you know, when we're trying to, like, we're doing something, we're like remodeling the front counter area, we were just going through like messing with the back area and like all this other kind of shit, right? And if I would have got paralyzed by like, oh, is this the perfect decision? We would never do anything. And at this point, like I just said it to Cruz today, because we're looking at the layout of the front counter area, we're doing the painting, and they're going to be like we're moving the styles over the place because we need to add it, I don't know, like purple of them or whatever it happened to be. And he's like, you know, number one, he's like showing me where he's like, hey, I think we should do this, this, and this. I'm like, all right, sounds good. I said, and we'll see what happens. Like, because like if it's like anything else, it's going to take like 3 or 4 more changes until we actually are like, oh, this is a good spot for it. And it's not like small little changes. It's literally like you might do something, you might spend like, we've been through it. And maybe it's just I'm a moron. It could be. But there's been times, you know, I talked about it before, like the moving stuff in the back where you think it's going to work out one way and then you start using it and then it's like, oh, immediately, within a day or two, that it's not going to work out, right? And a lot of times most people, I think, would just keep on suffering through it because they're like, all right, I made the decision. Whereas I'm like, we're just going to keep on adjusting until we get to what we need to do. And like, it's not like simple changes. You know, when we're moving the stuff in the production area, it's like, you know, it might take 4 guys like 2 days to make all these changes. And then we find out within like the first 2 hours of using it the following day, we're like, oh shit, this isn't gonna work, right? And so then we would change the shit again, and it might take 2 guys or 4 guys another 2-3 days to move everything again. I can't tell you how many times that has happened in a production area. Every time it's like 4 and 5 times before you get to where you want it to be. Now that, again, that could be an inexperience kind of issue because I don't have the right people, because we don't really know exactly what we're doing. And I don't want to say that if you're watching this as like, you know, you're considering to use us, you know, use my company for your fence supplier. I don't mean it like that. I mean it like we don't have, what is the right way to put it? We haven't been doing this for like 20 years. Like, we haven't been to multiple companies, and like we haven't, no one's worked at, well, one guy has, worked at multiple companies to see what different layouts are and how they put things together and how they build their gates and like all this other kind of stuff. So we're figuring out things as we go, which honestly I think is actually a benefit for us, because it allows us to not have any like preconceived notions. So a lot of the stuff that we're coming up with is just stuff that people don't even think about, right? Trying to think what else. If you're not willing, and this isn't always true either, so if you're not willing to work a shit ton of hours, there's times, now it's not like you have to work forever, all these hours forever. That's not the case, I don't think, unless you're just doing something wrong, or you, like, that's what you're trying to build your business to, is just working a shit ton of hours, which if that's what you want to do, because like you hate your wife or something, go for it, I guess. But in the beginning, whatever you think time-wise, double it. Like if you think it's like, oh, I'm gonna work 40, 50 hours a week. Nah, it's like 80 plus, right? If you have a problem with not taking days off for like months at a time, may not be for you, especially in the beginning, right? So I got this cop behind me, it's Gloucester, we'll see what happens. So anyway, trying to think what else. Yeah, Gloucester is not the place to be. So hopefully I don't get pulled over for this, because I don't even know if I have my documents and shit. So they're probably going after this guy here, I would think. But anyway, so we got that. I think that's about it. Like honestly, I feel like, we'll see what happens. I don't know if he's gonna have a problem with me having my light on. We'll see. I'm trying to think what else is kind of indicative of someone not being able to have a successful company. If you're not the type of person that figures shit out, or has someone on your team that can figure shit out, because there are so many times, like, it's kind of like having a kid. I kind of think it goes back to that a lot, actually, or having a kid, because there is so many unknowns that you can't possibly calculate for all of it. Like, you just can't. There's every day where it's like, there's so many times where you think like everything's finally figured out and like everything's great. And then like 4 seconds later, this ginormous pile of shit lands on your head. Honestly, it gets frustrating. But it is what it is. But it's also like, at this point, you kind of have to understand that it's the price you pay for owning your own business. It's the price you pay for calling the shots. I personally like it because like I don't think I'm employable at this point. As far as working for someone else, like know for a fact I probably would get my ass fired pretty quickly, because I will consistently, and it drives my wife crazy too, but like I will, like if there's something I think is wrong and there's a better way to do it or whatever else, I'm gonna say it. That being said, like, oh, if you have a problem with risk tolerance, right? So if you don't have a high risk tolerance, I don't know if it would work out that well. There's so many times, honestly, since I've owned a business, that if the decision I made didn't work out, it could have been detrimental to the company, to my everything. It just could have. Now, I don't know if that's something to like be proud of or not, to be honest with you. But it's also a mentality of, I think, because again, going back to like, I've been in so many situations that I thought was like going to be like this dire situation. I always got through it, that now it's like, I don't have that fear of failure at this point. There's actually something, someone was interviewing Musk, and it was just like a quick thing that they were talking about, but it was basically more or less like, what happens if like this company goes, what happens if this goes bankrupt, right? I forget what company they were talking about. And he's like, well, you know, the SpaceX almost, like, if they didn't have that one final successful mission, or, you know, the one launch or whatever, he's like, we would have been out of business. If Tesla, he's like, we've almost went out of business countless times. And he's like, well, if it happens, then but I'm going to be okay. There's something more along like that. And I just feel the same way at this point. Trying to think what else. This honestly is all spurred from just me being, like, because of working the hours, and like, honestly, my wife, when I work-life balance, right? If you are really dead set on life balance, it's probably not going to work out. There is yes and no, depending on what you're trying to do, depending on what stage of the business is at. But honestly, like, you're kind of like years in the making, unless you figure something out. Unless you're in an area and you pick a service that is extremely high, it's going to be really tough. If you're going into something, and a lot of times the high margin things are going to be, okay, my son's done, I think. High margin things, they're kind of hard to get into, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, if there's a low barrier to entry or a low cost to entry, as far as like with fencing, there's really not a lot of cost to it. There's not a lot of certifications or anything like that, depending where you are. So margins just aren't high. That being said, there's different subsets within each industry. So with fencing, you're in residential, it's very easy to get into, you know, but if you start getting into commercial or industrial, that's a whole nother level, you know, but that also creates other variables of risk and things like that, because you might be on a net 30 and net 60, something like that, whereas residential, like, money's in and out very quickly. So when you're dealing with net 30 and net 60s, then you really have to have your money handled. But that also is like, that's a barrier to, like, that's a higher barrier, because a lot of people you're competing against, like contractors, like, no offense, but like contractors in general don't know what the hell they're doing with their money. And like, I'm going to be part of that as well. Like, you know, compare me to, you know, someone that's ultra wealthy or whatever, like the amount of like financial knowledge that they have versus me, it's two totally different games. Like, I might as well, it's like me competing against like a, you know, 3-year-old, right? So there's a lot of shit that goes wrong, but like, at the end of the day, like, for me, the reason why I do this honestly is I really can't imagine working for someone else. And now this all could be because of McDonald's. It could be because I hated the job so much that now I equate any job that I don't directly control that might be a horrible situation. It also could be for the type of person I am. I'm not naturally suited into being like an employee. I'm not I'm not consistent. For the most part. I don't want to say that kind of stuff because then it starts coming true. But like, I'm not the typical, like, very consistent, by the book person. And that's what a lot of companies need, right? But that's where I think where my skill set comes in is the vision. And like, honestly, it's just having crazy ass dreams. You were saying, I forget who it was. Maybe it was Patrick David. He's another good channel to listen to as well. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but he's good. I was just watching something the other day by him, and he was saying it, and other people say it as well. It's the entrepreneurs are the ones that are changing. They change the world. The politicians, shit like that, they're not looking out for us. They're just not. And that's where I was telling the doctor today. It was interesting, and I don't follow politics. I don't vote. Like, you know, I think it's all like, I think we're fucked no matter what. And I don't think it's just we as in like the country. I think we as in like the world, the way everything's set up, for the most part, we're like fucked if you just look at the numbers. But it's nice to see Elon. First, I was like seeing Elon getting involved, but like a lot of people were saying, and it makes sense, that like people are trying to get involved with Trump because of like what they could do for them, right? So like for Musk, it could be like deregulation and things like that. But it was really nice hearing, and at first I thought it was bullshit, but then the more and more I look at it, I'm like, maybe not, is the whole having the outside, like the private sector, actually start getting involved and looking at what the government's doing and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why is there, you know, why are we spending billions of dollars on this or that or whatever? So anyway, my son's walking in the door. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you. Bye.